The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Captain Jake Miller's eyes as he piloted his small exploration vessel, the Stargazer. Jake was a seasoned space explorer, known for his bravery and quick thinking. His mission was simple: map uncharted regions of the galaxy and report back to Earth. As Jake navigated through an asteroid field, a sudden alarm blared through the ship. Red lights flashed, warning of an imminent system failure. Jake's heart raced as he tried to regain control of the Stargazer. But it was too late. The ship spiraled towards an unknown planet, its green and purple surface growing larger by the second. "Mayday! Mayday!" Jake shouted into his communicator, hoping someone would hear his distress call. But only static answered him. With a deafening crash, the Stargazer hit the planet's surface, metal screeching as it tore apart. When Jake opened his eyes, he found himself lying in the wreckage of his ship. He was alive, but for how long? The air was thick and humid, making it hard to breathe. Strange, glowing plants surrounded him, their leaves pulsing with an eerie light. Jake stumbled out of the wreckage, his legs shaky. He looked around, trying to get his bearings. The sky was a deep purple, with two suns hanging low on the horizon. In the distance, he could see mountains that seemed to float in the air, defying gravity. "Well, Jake," he muttered to himself, "you're not in Kansas anymore." As he took stock of his situation, Jake realized the gravity on this planet was slightly less than Earth's. Each step made him feel light, almost bouncy. He checked his equipment. His water purifier was intact, and he had enough emergency rations to last a week. But his communication device was broken, smashed in the crash. Jake decided to explore his surroundings, hoping to find materials to repair his ship. As he walked through the alien forest, he marveled at the strange life forms around him. Floating jellyfish-like creatures drifted between trees, while snake-like vines wrapped themselves around glowing rocks. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the forest. Jake froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his laser pistol. The growl came again, closer this time. Jake's eyes darted around, trying to locate the source of the sound. Then he saw it. Emerging from the shadows was the most terrifying creature Jake had ever seen. It stood on 6 legs, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Its body was covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water, but its most striking feature was its head, or rather, heads. The creature had 3 heads, each with a mouth full of teeth that looked like they could cut through steel. Jake's mind raced. He had heard stories about this creature. It was known as the Tri-Fang, the most lethal predator in the known galaxy. No one had ever survived an encounter with it. Jake raised his laser pistol, knowing it would probably be useless against such a beast. The Tri-Fang's 6 eyes locked onto him, its heads weaving back and forth as it approached. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, the Tri-Fang stopped. It tilted its heads, looking at Jake with what seemed like curiosity. Jake lowered his weapon slightly, confused. The Tri-Fang took another step forward, then sat back on its hind legs. It made a soft chirping sound, so unlike the fearsome growl from before. "What are you doing?" Jake whispered, more to himself than the creature. To his amazement, the Tri-Fang mimicked his whisper, producing a sound that was eerily similar to Jake's voice. Jake's eyes widened in surprise. Was this creature intelligent? Slowly, carefully, Jake took a step towards the Tri-Fang. The creature didn't move, its eyes still fixed on Jake. Jake held out his hand, palm up, as he would to a dog back on Earth. The Tri-Fang leaned forward, sniffing Jake's hand with all 3 of its heads. Then, to Jake's utter astonishment, it gently pressed one of its heads against his palm. At that moment, Jake realized that everything he thought he knew about this creature, about this planet, about the galaxy itself, might be wrong. Here he was, a human, touching the galaxy's most feared predator, and he was still alive. As the 2 unlikely beings stood there, surrounded by the alien forest and bathed in the light of 2 setting suns, Jake couldn't help but smile. This was why he had become an explorer. For moments like these, moments that defied explanation and expectation. Little did Jake know, this encounter was just the beginning of an adventure that would change the course of galactic history. As the alien sun set, casting long shadows across the strange landscape, Jake Miller found himself in a situation he never could have imagined. The Trifang, a creature known throughout the galaxy as a merciless killer, sat beside him like an overgrown, three-headed puppy. "Well, big guy," Jake said, his voice quiet in the gathering twilight. "I guess we're stuck with each other." The Trifang tilted its middle head, making a soft trilling sound. Jake couldn't help but smile. Despite its fearsome appearance, there was something almost cute about the creature's behavior. But as night fell, bringing with it a bone-chilling cold, Jake's smile faded. He needed shelter, and fast. He looked at the Trifang, an idea forming in his mind. "Hey, you wouldn't happen to know a good place to sleep around here, would you?" To Jake's surprise, the Trifang stood up. It took a few steps, then looked back at Jake, as if waiting for him to follow. Jake hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. What did he have to lose? They walked through the alien forest, the bioluminescent plants casting an eerie glow. Strange noises echoed in the darkness, making Jake jump. But the Trifang seemed unbothered, leading the way with confidence. After what felt like hours, they arrived at the mouth of a large cave. The Trifang walked inside without hesitation. Jake peered into the darkness, his hand on his laser pistol. "Home sweet home, huh?" he muttered, following the creature inside. The cave was surprisingly warm and dry. Jake's eyes adjusted to the darkness, and he saw that the walls were covered in more of the glowing plants, providing a soft, comforting light. The Trifang curled up in a corner, its scales shimmering in the dim light. Jake sat down against the opposite wall, watching the creature warily. Despite their peaceful encounter, he wasn't ready to let his guard down completely. As the night wore on, Jake found himself talking to the Trifang. He told it about Earth, about his mission, about his fears of never making it home. The creature listened, its 6 eyes fixed on Jake, occasionally making soft noises as if in response. "You know," Jake said, yawning, "for a supposedly lethal predator, you're not so bad. I think I'll call you Trixie. You know, because of the 3 heads and, oh, never mind." Trixie, as the Trifang was now named, made a purring sound that Jake took as approval. The next morning, Jake woke to find Trixie gone. For a moment, he feared the creature had abandoned him. But then Trixie returned, dragging the carcass of some alien animal. Jake's stomach turned at the sight, but he realized with a start that Trixie was trying to feed him. The creature dropped the carcass at Jake's feet, looking expectant. Thanks, Trixie, but I'm not sure I can eat that," Jake said, patting his pocket where he kept his rations. "I've got my own food." Trixie looked confused, sniffing at Jake's pocket. Jake pulled out a protein bar, unwrapped it, and took a bite. Trixie watched with fascination. Over the next few days, Jake and Trixie fell into a routine. They would explore the area around the cave, with Jake collecting samples and trying to repair his communication device, while Trixie kept watch for dangers. Jake found himself talking constantly to Trixie, explaining what he was doing, asking questions, even though he knew Trixie couldn't answer, and even telling jokes. To his amazement, Trixie seemed to be learning. The creature began to mimic some of Jake's gestures, and even attempted to copy some of his simpler words. One evening, as they sat at the mouth of the cave watching the twin suns set, Jake had a breakthrough. He had been trying to teach Trixie the words for different colors, pointing at various plants and rocks. "Blue," Jake said, pointing at a glowing flower. "That's blue." "Boo," Trixie rumbled, the sound coming from its middle head. Jake froze, his eyes wide. Did you just talk?" "Boo," Trixie repeated, more confidently this time. Jake laughed, a sound of pure joy and amazement. You did it, Trixie. You talked. As Jake celebrated this small but significant victory, he didn't notice the flashing light on his repaired communication device. A message was coming through, breaking the silence of the alien world. To any survivors of the Stargazer, this is Galactic Rescue Team Alpha. We've picked up your distress signal and are en route to your location. ETA. 48 hours. Hold tight. The message played unheard as Jake and Trixie continued their language lesson, blissfully unaware that their time together was coming to an end. The true test of their unlikely friendship was about to begin. The alien jungle buzzed with life as Jake and Trixie made their way through the thick undergrowth. It had been a week since their first encounter, and in that time, an unlikely bond had formed between the human explorer and the three-headed predator. "Watch out for those purple vines, Trixie," Jake warned, pointing at some nasty-looking plants. "Last time I touched one, my hand itched for hours." Trixie made a low rumbling sound, almost like a chuckle, and carefully stepped around the vines. Jake grinned. It was amazing how quickly Trixie had learned to understand him. As they walked, Jake's mind wandered to his broken communication device. He had been so caught up in survival and getting to know Trixie that he hadn't checked it in days. "Maybe we should head back to the cave," he mused. "I should try to fix that comm unit again." Suddenly, Trixie froze. All three heads snapped to attention, eyes fixed on something in the distance. Jake tensed, his hand moving to his laser pistol. "What is it, buddy?" he whispered. Before Trixie could respond, a deafening roar shook the forest. Trees parted as a massive creature burst into view. It looked like a cross between an earth rhinoceros and a bulldozer, with armored plates covering its body and a horn that glowed with an eerie light. "Oh, crud," Jake muttered, his eyes wide with fear. The monster charged straight at them. Jake raised his pistol, but he knew it would be useless against such a behemoth. Just as he was about to dive out of the way, Trixie leaped in front of him. To Jake's amazement, Trixie faced the charging beast head-on. The Trifang's three mouths opened wide, each emitting a different pitched shriek that combined into an ear-splitting wail. The sound was so intense that Jake had to cover his ears. The effect on the charging creature was immediate. It skidded to a halt, shaking its massive head in confusion. Before it could recover, Trixie pounced. The Trifang's agility was incredible, darting around the larger beast, nipping at its legs and flanks. Jake watched in awe as Trixie single-handedly drove off the attacker. As the dust settled, Trixie trotted back to Jake, looking rather pleased with itself. That was amazing," Jake exclaimed, patting Trixie's middle head. "You saved my life, buddy." Trixie nuzzled Jake's hand, making a soft, purring sound. In that moment, Jake realized something profound. This creature, feared across the galaxy as a mindless killing machine, had risked its life to protect him. As they made their way back to the cave, Jake couldn't stop thinking about how wrong everyone had been about the Trifangs. He wondered how many other alien species had been misunderstood, feared, or even hunted because of simple misunderstandings. Back at the cave, Jake set to work on his communication device, while Trixie curled up nearby, keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings. As Jake tinkered with the wires, he talked to Trixie about Earth, about the stars, about his dreams of exploring the galaxy. "You know, Trixie," he said, "when I dreamed of making first contact with an alien species, I never imagined it would be like this, but I wouldn't change it for anything." Trixie made a series of clicks and whistles that Jake had come to recognize as agreement. Just then, Jake's fingers slipped, and he cut himself on a sharp piece of metal. "Ouch," he exclaimed, sucking on his injured finger. To his surprise, Trixie got up and came over. The creature gently took Jake's hand in its mouth, not biting, but holding it carefully. A moment later, Jake felt a cool, soothing sensation. When Trixie released his hand, the cut was gone. You can heal?" Jake asked, astonished. Trixie just blinked at him, as if to say, "Of course I can." Jake laughed, shaking his head in wonder. "Is there anything you can't do, buddy?" As night fell, Jake and Trixie sat at the mouth of the cave, watching the strange constellations of this alien world. Jake found himself talking about his fears, of never being rescued, of never seeing Earth again. Trixie listened attentively, occasionally making soft, comforting sounds. As Jake talked, he realized something. Even if he never made it home, he wasn't alone anymore. He had found a friend in the most unlikely of places. Just as Jake was about to suggest they turn in for the night, a bright light flashed across the sky. Jake's heart leaped. Was that a ship? The light grew brighter, coming closer. Jake jumped to his feet, waving his arms. "Here, we're here," he shouted. As the ship came into view, Jake felt a mix of joy and sadness. Rescue meant going home, but it also meant leaving Trixie behind. He looked at his alien friend, who was watching the approaching ship with curiosity. "Well, buddy," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion, "looks like our adventure might be coming to an end." Little did Jake know, this wasn't the end of their adventure. It was just the beginning of a much bigger one that would change the course of galactic history forever. The rescue ship landed with a soft hiss, kicking up a cloud of alien dust. Jake stood at the mouth of the cave, Trixie by his side. His heart raced with a mix of excitement and anxiety. As the ship's door opened, Jake saw 3 figures emerge. They wore the blue and silver uniforms of the Galactic Rescue Team. The leader, a tall woman with green skin and antennae, stepped forward. Her eyes widened as she saw Trixie. "Stand back, human," she shouted, raising a weapon. "That's a Tri-Fang." "No, wait," Jake yelled, stepping in front of Trixie. "He's my friend. He won't hurt anyone." The rescue team looked at each other in disbelief. The leader lowered her weapon slowly, her antenna twitching with curiosity. "I'm Captain Zora," she said. "We picked up your distress signal." "But did you say that Tri-Fang is your friend?" Jake nodded, patting Trixie's middle head. "His name is Trixie. He saved my life." Captain Zora's jaw dropped. "Impossible," she muttered. "Tri-Fangs are the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They can't be tamed." "He's not tamed," Jake explained. "We're friends. We understand each other." As if to prove Jake's point, Trixie made a series of soft clicks and whistles. Jake smiled, recognizing the sound of agreement. Captain Zara and her team watched in amazement as Jake and Trixie interacted. They saw how the feared predator gently nuzzled Jake, how it responded to his words and gestures. "This is unprecedented," Captain Zora said. She tapped a device on her wrist. "Central Command, we have a situation here. You're not going to believe this." Over the next few hours, Jake told his story to the rescue team. He explained how Trixie had helped him survive, how they had learned to communicate, and how Trixie had saved him from the rhino-like creature. As word spread, more ships arrived. Scientists, diplomats, and military personnel from various alien races came to see the impossible. A human who had befriended a Tri-Fang. Jake found himself at the center of a galactic storm. Some alien races were fascinated, seeing this as a chance for new understanding. Others were terrified, worried that if Tri-Fangs could be befriended, they might be used as weapons. A group of blue-skinned aliens with large, owl-like eyes approached Jake. "We are the Nilarians," one of them said. "We have been studying Tri-Fangs for centuries. May we observe your interaction?" Jake agreed, and soon he and Trixie were performing simple tasks together, demonstrating their bond. The Nilarians watched in awe as Trixie responded to Jake's commands, and as Jake interpreted Trixie's sounds and gestures. "Remarkable," a Nilarian scientist murmured. "The neural connection between them is unlike anything we've seen." But not everyone was impressed. A group of reptilian aliens, the Dracons, viewed the situation with suspicion. "This is dangerous," their leader hissed. "If humans can control Tri-Fangs, they could become the most powerful force in the galaxy." "We don't control them," Jake protested. "We're friends. There's a difference." As tensions rose, Captain Zora stepped in. "This discovery could change everything we thought we knew about interspecies relations," she announced. "We need to approach this carefully, with open minds." Jake found himself becoming an impromptu ambassador, not just for humanity, but for the misunderstood Trifangs. He told anyone who would listen about Trixie's intelligence, its capacity for friendship, and its unexpected abilities like healing. As news spread across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some worlds called for immediate diplomatic relations with both humans and Trifangs. Others closed their borders, fearing the implications of this new alliance. On distant planets, debates raged in Grand Council chambers. Should humans be seen as a threat or an opportunity? Could the feared Trifangs be allies instead of enemies? The galaxy was divided, unsure how to proceed. Amidst the chaos, Jake and Trixie remained together, their unlikely friendship a beacon of hope for some, a source of fear for others. Jake knew that their bond had set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy. As the alien sun set on another day, Jake sat with Trixie, watching the stars come out. He thought about the adventure that had brought him here, and the even bigger adventure that lay ahead. "Well, buddy," he said, scratching Trixie behind its middle head, "looks like we've stirred up quite a storm in the galaxy. But whatever happens next, we'll face it together." Trixie made a soft purring sound, all three heads nuzzling against Jake. Whatever the galaxy might think, their friendship was real, and it was about to change everything. 2 weeks had passed since Jake and Trixie's rescue. They now found themselves on a massive space station, orbiting a neutral planet. The station buzzed with activity as representatives from various galactic races debated the implications of their friendship. Jake stood at a large window, looking out at the stars. Trixie sat beside him, all three heads watching the busy aliens rushing past. Despite the commotion, Jake felt uneasy. Something wasn't right. "I don't like this, Trixie," Jake muttered. "It feels like we're on display in the zoo." Trixie made a low rumbling sound that Jake had come to recognize as agreement. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice announced, "Warning, unauthorized ship approaching. All personnel to emergency stations." Jake's heart raced. He looked at Trixie, who was now on full alert, all 6 eyes scanning for danger. "Come on, buddy," Jake said. "We need to find Captain Zora." They rushed through the crowded corridors, aliens of all shapes and sizes running in panic. They found Captain Zora in the command center, her green face tight with worry. "Jake, Trixie, thank goodness you're here," she said. "We've got a problem. A Drakon warship has entered the system. They're demanding we hand you over." Jake's blood ran cold. The Drakons, the reptilian race that had been most vocal against his friendship with Trixie, had made their move. "What do they want with us?" Jake asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. "They claim that your bond with Trixie is a threat to galactic security," Zara explained. "They want to study you both, separately." Jake felt a surge of anger. "That's not going to happen," he said firmly, placing a hand on Trixie's back. Just then, a holographic screen flickered to life. A Drakon face appeared, scales glinting in the light of a distant sun. "This is Commander Slith of the Drakon Empire," the alien hissed. "Surrender the human and the Trifang, or we will take them by force." Captain Zara stepped forward. "This station is neutral territory. You have no authority here, Commander." Slith's forked tongue flicked out. "We have authority wherever we choose, Captain. You have 1 hour to comply." The screen went dark. The command center erupted into chaos as everyone argued about what to do. "We can't let them take you," Zara said to Jake. "But we're not equipped to fight a Drakon warship." Jake looked at Trixie, an idea forming. "Maybe we don't have to fight," he said. "Trixie, remember how we scared off that rhino thing on the planet? Think you could do something like that to a spaceship?" Trixie's eyes lit up with understanding. All three heads nodded eagerly. Jake turned to Zara. We need a ship, something small and fast, and we need to get close to the Drakon warship. Zara looked skeptical, but nodded. I hope you know what you're doing, Jake. Within the hour, Jake and Trixie were aboard a small scout ship, approaching the massive Drakon warship. Jake's palms were sweaty as he piloted the craft. Trixie crouched behind him. Okay, buddy, Jake said. It's showtime. As they neared the warship, its weapon systems locked onto them. Jake's calm crackled to life. This is your final warning. Slith's voice hissed. Surrender now. Jake took a deep breath. Now, Trixie. Trixie unleashed its secret weapon. All three mouths opened wide, emitting a sound that defied description. It was like 1,000 nails on a chalkboard, mixed with the roar of a supernova and the screech of a dying star. The sound waves rippled through space, slamming into the Drakon ship. On their view screen, Jake and Trixie watched in amazement as the massive warship shuddered. Its lights flickered, and it began to drift off course. It's working, Jake shouted. Keep it up, Trixie. The Drakon ship's weapons powered down, and its engines sputtered. Jake's calm crackled again, but this time it was Captain Zora's voice. Jake, Trixie, you did it, she exclaimed. The Drakon ship's systems are in chaos. They're retreating. As the Drakon warship limped away, Jake patted Trixie's middle head. We make a pretty good team, huh, buddy? Back on the station, Jake and Trixie were hailed as heroes. The Galactic Council, impressed by their bravery and teamwork, called for an emergency session to discuss the future of human-Tri-Fang relations. As Jake prepared for the council meeting, he knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, more minds to change. But with Trixie by his side, he felt ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them. The unlikely friendship between a human and the galaxy's most feared predator had just saved a space station from attack. Now, it might just bring peace to the entire galaxy. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was packed. Beings from 100 different worlds filled the seats, their chatter creating a low hum. At the center of it all stood Jake and Trixie, waiting nervously for the session to begin. Jake looked around, amazed by the diversity of life forms. There were floating jellyfish-like creatures, rock people who seemed to be made of living crystal, and even beings made of pure energy. Yet all eyes were on him and Trixie. The council elder, a wise old alien with silver skin and glowing eyes, called for silence. We are here today, she announced, to discuss the unprecedented friendship between a human and a Tri-Fang, and its implications for our galaxy. Jake stepped forward, Trixie by his side. He took a deep breath and began to speak. Members of the council, I know many of you fear Tri-Fangs. You've seen them as mindless killers, threats to be eliminated. But I'm here to tell you that everything we thought we knew about them is wrong. A murmur ran through the crowd. Jake continued, Trixie isn't just my friend. He's intelligent, caring, and capable of so much more than we ever imagined. And I believe there's a reason for that. Jake nodded to a group of Nilarian scientists. One of them, Dr. Xan, stepped forward with a holographic projector. Our research has led to an astounding discovery, Dr. Xan said. Tri-Fangs aren't natural predators at all. They're an engineered species. The hall erupted in shocked gasps and exclamations. The council elder raised her hand for quiet. Explain, she commanded. Dr. Xan activated the projector, showing complex DNA strands. Tri-Fang DNA contains markers consistent with artificial manipulation. We believe they were created by an ancient, highly advanced race. Jake took over. But something went wrong. The Tri-Fangs were abandoned, left to survive on their own. Without guidance, their incredible abilities, like their sonic attacks and healing powers, seemed random and destructive. Trixie made a soft, sad sound. Jake patted his middle head comfortingly. The Tri-Fangs weren't designed to be killers, Jake continued. They were meant to be protectors, peacekeepers. Their abilities were supposed to be used to help and heal, not to harm. The council elder leaned forward, her glowing eyes intense. "And how do you know this, human?" Jake smiled. "Because Trixie showed me. When we formed our bond, I began to see flashes of memories. Not just Trixie's, but ancestral memories, passed down through generations. I saw the Tri-Fang's true purpose." To demonstrate, Jake placed his hand on Trixie's back. To the council's amazement, Trixie's scales began to glow softly. A holographic image appeared above them, showing Tri-Fangs working alongside other species, using their abilities to heal the sick and calm conflicts. "This is what they were meant to be," Jake said softly. "And this is what they can be again, if we give them a chance." The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, a Drakon representative stood up. "This is preposterous," he hissed. "The Tri-Fangs have been our enemies for millennia. How can we trust them?" Jake turned to face the Drakon. "The same way I did, by taking a chance, by looking past fear to see the truth." Captain Zara stepped forward. "Council members, we've all seen what Jake and Trixie can do together. They saved our station from a Drakon attack, using nothing but trust and teamwork. Imagine what we could accomplish if we worked with the Tri-Fangs instead of fearing them." The council elder nodded slowly. "Your words are compelling, but words alone are not enough. We need proof." Jake looked at Trixie, an idea forming. "What if we could show you? Not just tell you, but let you experience what I have." He turned to Dr. Xan. "You said Tri-Fangs were engineered. Is it possible their ability to bond isn't limited to humans?" Dr. Xan's eyes widened. "In theory, yes. Their neural pathways are incredibly adaptable. But it would require a willing volunteer from another species." The council chamber went quiet. Then, to everyone's surprise, the Drakon representative stepped forward. "I volunteer," he said. "If what you say is true, I want to know." Jake smiled. "Thank you," he said. He looked around the chamber. "This is how we begin to understand each other. This is how we change the galaxy." As Jake prepared to guide the Drakon through the bonding process with another Tri-Fang, he felt a sense of hope. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but for the first time, there was a real chance for peace and understanding. The galaxy was about to change, all because one human chose friendship over fear. 5 years had passed since the historic Galactic Council meeting. Jake stood on the observation deck of the newly built Harmony Station, Trixie by his side. The station, shaped like a massive tree with branches reaching out into space, was a symbol of the new era of cooperation between species. Jake smiled as he watched ships from various worlds dock at the station. Humans, Tri-Fangs, Drakons, Nilarians, and dozens of other species moved freely, working together in ways that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. "We did it, buddy," Jake said, patting Trixie's middle head. Trixie made a happy trilling sound, all 3 heads nuzzling against Jake. A voice came from behind them. "Ambassador Jake, Ambassador Trixie, the ceremony is about to begin." Jake turned to see Captain Zara, now Admiral Zara, smiling at them. "We'll be right there," Jake replied. As they walked to the main hall, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The bonding of the Drakon representative with a Tri-Fang had been a turning point. It had proven that the bond wasn't unique to humans, but possible for any species willing to open their minds and hearts. In the years that followed, more and more beings had formed bonds with Tri-Fangs. Each bond revealed more of the Tri-Fang's lost history and purpose. The galaxy had learned that the Tri-Fangs were created by an ancient race called the Architects, who had seeded the galaxy with life, but disappeared long ago. The main hall was packed with representatives from every known species in the galaxy. At the center stood a group of Tri-Fangs, each paired with a being from a different world. Jake and Trixie took their place among them. The council elder, her silver skin now etched with lines of age, stepped forward. "Today," she announced, "we celebrate not just peace, but a new understanding. The Tri-Fang Restoration Project has been a success beyond our wildest dreams. Cheers erupted from the crowd. The elder raised her hand for silence. Thanks to the bravery of Jake and Trixie and the openness of all who followed their example, we have unlocked the true potential of the Tri-Fangs. They are not weapons, but healers. Not destroyers, but protectors. Jake stepped forward. What we've achieved here is just the beginning, he said. The Tri-Fangs have shared with us knowledge from the architects. Cures for diseases we thought incurable. Solutions to problems we thought unsolvable. But more importantly, they've taught us the power of looking beyond our fears and prejudices. Trixie made a series of clicks and whistles. Jake, along with every bonded pair in the room, nodded in understanding. Trixie says, Jake translated for the unbonded, that the architects created the Tri-Fangs to be a bridge between species, to help us understand that despite our differences, we are all connected. The Dracon representative who had first volunteered to bond stepped forward. I once saw the Tri-Fangs as monsters, he said. Now, I cannot imagine life without my bond partner. We have all grown stronger together. Admiral Zera spoke next. The Harmony stations we're building across the galaxy are more than just diplomatic outposts. They're centers of learning, of cultural exchange. Each one is a step towards the united galaxy the architects envisioned. As the ceremony continued, Jake found himself thinking about that first day on the alien planet when he crash-landed and met Trixie. How far they'd come from those first fearful moments. The galaxy was entering a golden age of peace and discovery. Diseases were being cured, wars were ending, and the combined knowledge of 100 worlds was pushing the boundaries of science and exploration. As the ceremony drew to a close, the elder spoke once more. Let us never forget the lesson at the heart of this new era, she said. That friendship can overcome fear, that understanding can bridge any difference, and that the hand of peace, when offered sincerely, can transform even the fiercest enemy into the closest ally. Jake looked at Trixie, then out at the sea of faces, human, Tri-Fang, and 100 other species. He saw hope in every eye, felt the promise of a brighter future in every heart. The galaxy had changed, all because one human and one Tri-Fang had chosen to reach out to each other. As Jake and Trixie stood together, ready to face whatever new adventures the universe might bring, one thing was certain. The era of fear was over. The age of friendship had begun.